The High Court of Cape Coast was full that morning. People filled every bench. Some stood near the walls. Others leaned forward, curious and excited. Everyone had come to see the case of Zainabu Mensah, the quiet girl from Takoradi who was now being called a thief. Zainabu sat on the wooden bench, her hands folded tightly on her lap. She was only 24. She had always been hardworking and respectful. She never liked attention. But today all eyes were on her. Her heart was beating fast. She could feel it in her chest. Still, she kept her head down and tried not to cry. Across the room sat her mother, Alma Mensah. Alma was well dressed, wearing expensive clothes and shiny jewelry. She looked proud and angry at the same time. She did not look at Zainabu like a mother looks at her child. She looked at her like an enemy. When the judge asked questions, Alma suddenly stood up. Her voice became loud. It echoed in the courtroom. "She's a disgrace to this family," she shouted. "She stole our money. She has no shame." People gasped. Some whispered. Some shook their heads. Cameras flashed. Phones were raised. Zainabu felt her face burn. Tears filled her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She looked around and saw strangers judging her, believing the words of her own mother. In that moment she felt completely alone. Surrounded by people, yet abandoned by everyone who was supposed to protect her. As Zainabu sat in the courtroom, her mother's harsh words kept echoing in her mind. "She's a disgrace." Those words did not start today. They had followed her since childhood. Her thoughts slowly drifted back to the past, to the life she had lived long before this courtroom pain. She grew up in a small house in Takoradi. The roof leaked when it rained. Sometimes there was no light. Sometimes there was no proper food. But even in that hard life, Zainabu was different. She loved books. She loved learning. While other children played outside, she stayed inside reading old notebooks and borrowed textbooks. Her teachers often praised her. They said she was smart and focused. But at home her efforts meant nothing. Her mother, Alma, only had eyes for her first daughter, Efua. Efua was beautiful, confident and loud. Alma always dressed her well and spoke proudly about her. When guests came, Alma introduced Efua first. Zainabu usually stood quietly in the corner, unnoticed. If something broke in the house, Alma blamed Zainabu. If money went missing, Alma blamed Zainabu. If Efua failed an exam, Alma blamed Zainabu. No matter what happened, it was always her fault. When Zainabu gained admission to Kumasi University, she was so happy she cried. It felt like her escape. But no one helped her. Her mother said, "Ask your sister. I have no money for you." Efua refused. So Zainabu worked. She sold snacks. She washed clothes. She tutored younger students. Sometimes she studied late at night with tired eyes and empty stomach. Still, she never gave up. She paid her own fees. She bought her own books. She built her own future with shaking hands and strong faith. Inside, though, the pain kept growing. She smiled outside, but inside she felt unwanted. She wanted her mother's love. She wanted to hear, "I'm proud of you." But those words never came. Instead, she learned to stay quiet, to endure, to survive alone. And now, sitting in court, she realized her whole life had been a long fight to prove she was worthy of being called a daughter. After her father passed away, everything in Zainabu's life changed. The house became quiet. Laughter disappeared. Even small family gatherings stopped. What remained was tension, anger, and hidden greed. Everyone started talking about money, about property, about who deserved what. Her father had left behind an estate worth a lot: land, savings, and business shares. Among it was 300,000 Ghanaian cedis kept in a special account. At first no one mentioned it. But one evening, during a family meeting, Alma suddenly stood up and pointed at Zainabu. "She took it," Alma said coldly. "She stole the money." The room went silent. Zainabu froze. Her heart skipped. She looked around in shock. "Me?" she asked softly. "I don't even know about that account." But no one listened. Efua crossed her arms and nodded. Some uncles murmured in agreement. Aunties whispered behind their hands. Within minutes the story had changed. From, "We don't know," to "Zainabu must have done it." Alma did not stop there. She hired the most expensive lawyers in Cape Coast. Men in sharp suits carrying thick files. Lawyers who spoke big English and looked powerful. And they were not hired to protect Zainabu. They were hired to destroy her. Her own mother was preparing to fight her like an enemy. During the hearings, relatives came forward one by one. An uncle said, "I saw her near the office that day." An aunt said, "She always liked money too much." A cousin said, "She once asked about the account." All lies. None of it was true. But they said it with straight faces. Zainabu sat there listening, feeling her heart break again and again. These were people she had helped, people she had respected, people she had trusted. Now they were selling her name for money. She wanted to shout. She wanted to cry. She wanted to ask, "Why are you doing this to me?" But she didn't. She stayed calm. She held her tears. She kept her back straight. She remembered the words of her lawyer, Kwame. "Let them talk," he had said. "Truth does not need noise." So while lies filled the courtroom, Zainabu remained silent, holding on to the small hope that justice would soon speak for her. While everyone in court was busy talking, accusing and shouting, one man always remained quiet. He sat beside Zainabu, calm and relaxed as if nothing could shake him. His name was Kwame Daramola. He was not just any lawyer. He was one of the most respected defense attorneys from Accra Heights. People in the legal world knew him well. Judges trusted him. Lawyers feared him. Not because he was loud but because he was smart. When Kwame spoke, cases changed. When he stayed silent, people became nervous. He never wasted words. He never argued without proof. In court, while other lawyers shouted and walked around, Kwame mostly sat still. He listened. He wrote notes slowly in his small brown notebook. Sometimes he adjusted his glasses. Sometimes he looked at the witnesses with quiet eyes as if reading their minds. Many people wondered, why is he not talking? Is he weak? Does he even have a case? They didn't know his style. Months before the case reached court, Zainabu had met him secretly in a small office in Accra. At that time she was scared, confused and almost ready to give up. Her family had already started spreading stories. Some friends had stopped calling her. She felt trapped. Someone had given her Kwame's number. When she first entered his office, she expected a cold man. But he welcomed her kindly and asked her to sit. He listened to her for more than 2 hours without interrupting. She told him everything, about her childhood, her mother, her sister, and the money she never touched. When she finished, her voice was shaking. "I'm innocent," she said quietly. "But no one believes me." Kwame looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled gently. "I believe you," he said. Those words gave her life again. He told her he would take the case, but she must be patient. He said her family would lie. They would shout. They would try to shame her. Then he said softly, "Let them talk. Truth will speak later." Since that day Zainabu trusted him completely. So in court, while everyone attacked her, she looked at Kwame and felt strong. Because she knew behind his silence he was preparing something powerful. As the days passed, the courtroom became more tense and more dangerous for Zainabu. What started as a legal case slowly turned into a public attack on her life, her character, and her dignity. Every hearing felt like another battle. Amma did not hold back anymore. Each time she was given a chance to speak, she used it to destroy her own daughter. "She is lazy," Amma said loudly one morning. "She pretends to be educated, but she is nothing. She has always depended on others. She is a useless burden to this family." Her words were sharp like knives. Zainabu sat quietly, staring at the floor. Every sentence felt like a slap. She remembered the nights she studied till dawn, the jobs she worked to survive, the sacrifices she made. Yet here was her mother erasing all of it with one voice. Other lawyers joined in. They questioned her education. They mocked her simple dressing. They hinted that she lived a fake life. One lawyer even said, "People like her always want shortcuts." The courtroom murmured. Outside things were getting worse. Journalists had filled the back seats. Cameras followed every movement. Microphones were pushed forward whenever Amma spoke. Headlines appeared online the same day. Daughter accused of stealing family fortune. University girl exposed as thief. Mother cries for justice. Short video clips spread everywhere. On social media, strangers began judging her. "She looks guilty. She's pretending. I never trusted quiet girls. Shame on her." Some people sent her insults. Others laughed at her photos. Her name became a joke online. Zainabu stopped checking her phone. At night, she cried silently in her room. In the morning, she wiped her face and returned to court. Amma became more aggressive. One day, she stood up and shouted without permission, "This girl has wasted my life. I regret giving birth to her." The courtroom froze. Even the judge was shocked. He hit his desk and said firmly, "Madam Amma, control yourself. This is a court, not a market." Amma sat down slowly, breathing hard. Zainabu closed her eyes. She felt broken. But somewhere inside her, a small voice kept saying, "Hold on. This storm will pass." That morning the courtroom felt different. There was no shouting, no whispering, No movement. It was unusually quiet. People sat still on their benches. Even the journalists had lowered their cameras. Zainabu sat with her hands folded, her eyes tired from too many sleepless nights. Amma sat across from her, breathing heavily, still angry from the last hearing. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked at both sides. "Is there anything more?" he asked. For a few seconds no one answered. Then slowly Kwame Dermola moved. He closed his notebook. He pushed his chair back. And he stood up. The sound of the chair scraping lightly on the floor felt loud in the silence. All eyes turned to him. People leaned forward. Even the lawyers on the other side stopped writing. They knew something was about to happen. Kwame never stood up without a reason. He took one step forward. Then another. He rested his hands lightly on the table and leaned in. His voice was calm but strong. "Your Honor," he said, "this case has been built on lies." The words dropped like thunder. Gasps filled the room. Amma's face stiffened. Efua's eyes widened. The relatives looked at each other nervously. Zainabu's heart started beating fast. She looked at Kwame in surprise. This was the moment he had been waiting for. Kwame continued, still calm. "4 months, my client has been insulted, shamed, and judged without proof," he said. "False stories have been presented as facts. Rumors have been treated as evidence." The courtroom was frozen. No one interrupted him. Even the judge was listening carefully now. Kwame lifted his head slightly and looked directly at the judge. "With your permission, Your Honor," he said respectfully, "I would like to present evidence that will show the truth." The judge paused. He looked at Kwame. He looked at the other lawyers. He looked at Zainabu. Then he nodded slowly. "You may proceed," he said. A wave of tension passed through the room. Zainabu felt her throat tighten. Her hands trembled, but this time it was not fear. It was hope. For the first time since the case began, she felt that the darkness around her was about to break. Kwame took a deep breath and opened his briefcase slowly. The sound of the zipper seemed loud in the silent courtroom. Everyone watched him closely. Even the judge leaned forward in his seat. He pulled out a thick file and placed it on the table. "This," he said calmly, "is the truth." First, he handed some documents to the court officer, who passed them to the judge. "These are official bank records," Kwame explained. "They show every movement of the money from the estate account." The judge looked at the papers carefully. Kwame continued, "According to these records, 300,000 Ghanaian cedis was transferred secretly in 3 parts. Not by Zainabu, but by Amma Mensah." A loud gasp filled the room. People turned to look at Amma. She froze. Her lips began to shake. Kwame pointed at the dates on the document. These transfers were done late at night, using her personal access code. Only she had this code. Amma tried to speak but no words came out. Then Kwame signaled to his assistant. A screen was turned on in the courtroom. "Next," he said, "we have CCTV footage from Sunbay Finance Office." The video started playing. Everyone held their breath. On the screen, Efua could be seen standing at the counter filling forms. She looked around nervously. Then she took out papers and signed quickly. She copied her father's signature. It was clear. She was forging documents. Someone shouted softly, "Oh my God." Efua covered her face. Amma grabbed her bag tightly. Kwame was not done. "Finally," he said, "we have phone recordings." He pressed another button. Voices filled the room. Amma's voice. Efua's voice. An uncle's voice. They were talking about blaming Zainabu. "We will say she took it," Amma said in the recording. "She won't fight back," Efua replied. "She's too quiet," the uncle added. The courtroom exploded with murmurs. People whispered in shock. Some shook their heads. Others stared at Amma in disbelief. The judge raised his hand for silence. Amma's face had turned pale. Her confident posture disappeared. Her shoulders dropped. Sweat formed on her forehead. Zainabu felt tears roll down her cheeks, but this time they were not from pain. They were from relief. For the first time, everyone could see the truth she had been carrying alone. The courtroom was still in shock after the evidence was played. No one knew what to say. The lies that had been told for months had suddenly fallen apart. The truth was now standing in front of everyone. Amma was the first to break. Her hands started shaking. Her eyes filled with tears. Suddenly she covered her face and began to cry loudly. "This is not how it looks," she shouted between sobs. "I was confused. I was pressured. It wasn't only me." She stood up and pointed at her relatives. "It was Efua's idea. My brother told me to do it. They pushed me." She tried to blame everyone, but no one rushed to support her. Efua kept her head down, silent and scared. The uncle who had spoken in court earlier slowly moved his chair back. One aunt avoided eye contact. Another whispered to someone and shifted seats. They were stepping away from her. No one wanted to be connected to the truth anymore. The judge looked at Alma with serious eyes. "Madam," he said firmly, "we have bank records, video footage and voice recordings. These are not stories. These are facts." He tapped the file on his desk. "You planned this. You carried it out. And you allowed your daughter to be humiliated publicly." Alma opened her mouth but nothing came out. She sank back into her seat, weak and defeated. For the first time she did not look powerful. She looked small. The judge then turned to Zainabu. "Miss Mensah," he said gently, "do you have anything to say?" The room became quiet again. Zainabu stood up slowly. Her legs were shaking but she held herself strong. She looked at her mother. Not with anger. Not with hate. But with deep pain. "I never stole anything," she said softly. "I only wanted to be loved. I only wanted to be treated like a daughter." Her voice cracked. "I worked hard. I respected you. I stayed quiet even when you hurt me. But you chose to destroy me." Tears rolled down her face. "I forgive you," she added. "But I will never accept lies again." The courtroom was silent. Many people wiped their eyes. For the first time, Zainabu had spoken her truth, and it was powerful. After listening to everything carefully, the judge sat quietly for a few moments. He reviewed the documents again. He looked at the screen. He listened to the recordings one more time. The whole courtroom waited, holding their breath. Then he lifted his head. "This court has seen enough," he said firmly. His voice was clear and strong. "The accusations against Zainabu Mensah are false. There is no evidence that she stole any money. Instead, the evidence proves that she was framed." A wave of relief spread through the room. "The case against her is hereby dismissed," the judge continued. Zainabu closed her eyes. Tears flowed freely now. She whispered, "Thank you, God." The judge was not finished. "Based on the evidence presented," he added, "this court orders a full investigation into Alma Mensah, Efua Mensah, and any relatives involved in this conspiracy." Alma gasped. Efua started crying quietly. Some relatives lowered their heads in shame. The truth had finally caught up with them. Outside the courtroom, reporters rushed forward. Microphones were pushed toward Zainabu. "Miss Mensah, how do you feel? Do you forgive your family? What is your next step?" She looked confused and overwhelmed, but she smiled softly. "I'm grateful," she said. "The truth has set me free." The same media houses that once insulted her now changed their tone. New headlines appeared. Zainabu Mensah cleared of all charges. Innocent daughter vindicated. Family conspiracy exposed. Some journalists even apologized publicly. "We reported without full facts," one anchor said on TV. "We are sorry." On social media, people deleted old comments. Others posted messages of support. "We judged her wrongly. She is strong. She deserves respect." In Takoradi, neighbors started greeting her warmly again. Shop owners smiled at her. Old friends called to apologize. Church members prayed for her openly. People who once avoided her now praised her. Zainabu walked through her community with her head high for the first time in months. She was no longer the accused girl. She was a survivor. She was innocent. And everyone finally knew it. After the trial, Zainabu decided it was time for a fresh start. She left the memories of Cape Coast behind and moved to a beautiful apartment at Emerald Coast Residences in Tima. The view of the ocean every morning reminded her that life could be calm and full of possibilities. For the first time she felt free from shame and lies. She poured her energy into something she had always dreamed of, building her own fintech company. Mensah Holdings became her creation, her pride. She worked long hours, learning everything about finance, technology, and business management. Slowly the company grew, helping people manage money, save safely, and plan for their future. Zainabu loved knowing her work made a real difference, but she did not stop there. She remembered all the girls who, like her, had been silenced, shamed, or abused. She started a legal help program through her company, offering guidance and support to young women who had no one to fight for them. Every case she helped won, every girl she lifted, reminded her of the strength she had found inside herself. One afternoon Alma came to her door. She was older, tired, and full of regret. "Zainabu, I am sorry," she whispered. Zainabu looked at her mother, her heart softening, but she kept her boundaries strong. "I forgive you," she said calmly. But I will not let the past control me again. Zainabu turned back to her office, to her team, to her dreams. She was no longer just the quiet girl from Takarati. She was powerful, respected, and unstoppable. They called me a disgrace, until truth made me powerful. Zainabu smiled as the ocean breeze hit her face. The world had finally seen who she really was. And now she would never be silent again.